The city of Aurora Heights shimmered like a beacon of prosperity. Gleaming skyscrapers pierced the sky, their glass facades reflecting the golden sunlight like polished diamonds. The streets were alive with honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the occasional breeze carrying whispers of ambition and power, two forces that thrived in this urban jungle. In the heart of it all stood the Orion Palace, a hotel as old as the city's skyline and twice as legendary. Its marble columns and gold-accented carvings spoke of wealth and exclusivity, a fortress of privilege that only opened its doors to those who belonged to its invisible club. If you were a someone, the Orion would welcome you with a knowing smile and outstretched arms. If you weren't, its walls were as cold and unyielding as the judgmental stares inside. But the hotel's prestige meant little to Celeste Monroe, whose black SUV glided silently to a stop in front of the grand entrance. Celeste wasn't just a guest. She was a storm brewing on the horizon, and the Orion Palace had no idea what was coming. The car door opened and Celeste stepped out. The world seemed to pause. She stood tall, her fitted black suit tailored to perfection. Her hair, styled in a sleek bun, revealed high cheekbones and a jawline that could cut through steel. Her caramel skin glowed under the soft sunlight, and her sharp brown eyes scanned the scene like a queen surveying her kingdom. She exuded the kind of power that was earned, not given. Her success hadn't come from inherited wealth, whispered deals, or old money connections. No, Celeste Monroe had built her empire with unrelenting determination, clawing her way up in a tech industry that was never built for her. A black woman from humble beginnings, Monroe Technologies was now a global juggernaut in smart systems and AI solutions, making her one of the most influential names in the business world. Her assistant, Iris Wells, emerged from the car next, her red curls bouncing as she hoisted two matching suitcases in one hand and typed a message on her phone with the other. Iris, sharp and fierce in her own right, was Celeste's constant companion, a woman who could dismantle schedules, agendas, and egos with one raised eyebrow. "Everything is confirmed," Iris said, falling into step beside Celeste. "Your reservation has been listed under VIP guests since last month." Celeste's lips quirked into a faint smile. "Let's see if they're as ready for me as they claim." They ascended the stone steps to the hotel's entrance. The enormous glass doors slid open, ushering them into a world of opulence. The lobby of the Orion Palace was a monument to excess. Marble floors, polished to a mirror shine, stretched as far as the eye could see. Massive chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, their crystals casting fractal rainbows across the walls. Plush velvet armchairs circled tables of gleaming mahogany, while gold-accented art pieces adorned the walls, each one screaming wealth and exclusivity. Yet the moment Celeste stepped in, the shift was palpable. Silence descended like a veil. Conversations faltered mid-sentence. Guests turned their heads to stare, some curious, others appraising. Staff members exchanged furtive glances as if trying to decide whether her presence was a mistake. Celeste felt their stares, the invisible questions hanging in the air. Who is she? Why is she here? But she didn't falter. She had been here before. Different places, different names, same unspoken walls. "Celeste," Iris muttered under her breath. "They're looking at you like you're an alien." "Let them look," Celeste replied, her voice steady as stone. "They'll see what power looks like soon enough." Their heels clicked against the marble as they approached the reception desk. A young blonde receptionist, her name tag read Lauren, glanced up. Her polite smile faltered as her gaze landed on Celeste. She quickly plastered it back on, but the discomfort lingered in her widened eyes. "Good afternoon," Lauren said, her voice bright but strained. "Welcome to the Orion Palace. How may I assist you?" Iris stepped forward, holding up her phone with the confirmation details. "Reservation under Monroe. Celeste Monroe." Lauren hesitated, her fingers pausing over the keyboard. "Monroe?" she repeated, as though unsure she had heard correctly. A beat passed before she started typing, her eyes flicking nervously between the computer screen and Celeste. Celeste folded her arms, her gaze pinned on Lauren with quiet authority. She didn't need to speak to make her presence known. The tension in the air thickened. Finally, Lauren looked up, her face tight with discomfort. I'm sorry, Miss Monroe, but I don't see a reservation under that name. Iris's expression darkened. Excuse me? Check again. Lauren bit her lip. I've double-checked, ma'am. There's no reservation under Monroe. Celeste's face remained calm, but her eyes burned like embers. That's impossible. The reservation was made weeks ago. VIP status. Lauren's hand trembled as she adjusted her collar. I'm afraid we're fully booked for the week. Before Iris could erupt, a door behind the reception desk opened, and Victor Langley strode out. He was tall, silver-haired, and radiated the arrogance of a man who had spent years in power. His tailored suit was impeccable, his smile practiced and cold. Is there a problem here? Victor asked, his voice smooth but sharp. Lauren stammered. Mr. Langley, these guests, they're not in the system. Victor turned his gaze to Celeste, and in that moment, she saw the faint flicker of recognition, followed by something else. Resentment. Miss Monroe, Victor said, his tone feigning surprise. I'm Victor Langley, the general manager. It seems there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Celeste said flatly. My reservation was confirmed weeks ago. I expect my suite to be ready. Victor's smile thinned. I'm afraid that's not possible. We're at capacity. Our suites are fully occupied. Iris sputtered, her voice rising. Are you serious? This is absurd. We have the confirmation emails. Celeste raised a hand, silencing Iris. Her gaze never wavered as she locked eyes with Victor. Fully booked, she repeated. Yes, ma'am. Victor's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps we can recommend alternative accommodations that would be more suitable for you. The air grew cold. The insult hung there, sharp and deliberate. Celeste's jaw tightened, but she didn't lash out. Years of battling such slights had taught her patience, the kind of patience that set traps and waited for them to spring. Thank you for your time, Mr. Langley, Celeste said softly, the calm in her voice carrying an edge sharper than a blade. I'll make other arrangements. Victor blinked as if surprised by her composure. He had expected anger, a scene, something he could control and dismiss. Instead, Celeste turned on her heel and walked away, her stride purposeful, her heels echoing through the stunned silence of the lobby. Iris followed close behind, her cheeks flushed with rage. Celeste, this is ridiculous. He can't just— Let it go, Iris, Celeste said, her tone steady. She climbed into the SUV, shutting the door behind her. Iris slumped into the seat beside her, fuming. We should call a lawyer, or the press. He can't get away with this. Celeste didn't respond immediately. She stared through the window at the Orion Palace's gilded facade, its towering presence casting a long shadow over the street. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but resolute. They may have denied me a room today, Iris. But mark my words, they'll regret it. Iris turned to her, confused. What do you mean? Celeste's lips curled into the faintest smile, but her eyes burned with determination. If they won't let me stay as a guest, she said, her voice cold and clear, I'll come back as the owner. The black SUV rolled silently through the streets of Aurora Heights, the gleaming skyline passing like distant giants beyond tinted windows. Inside, Celeste sat perfectly still, her face carved from stone. Her eyes, however, blazed with a fire that Iris recognized all too well. You're too calm, Iris said, her voice edged with frustration. She tucked a loose curl behind her ear. That man humiliated you back there. I'd be burning down his office by now. Celeste didn't flinch. Her gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon. He doesn't deserve my anger. Iris blinked. Then what does he deserve? Celeste finally turned to her, the ghost of a smile on her lips. A lesson. Iris's brow furrowed. What kind of lesson? Celeste leaned back, crossing her arms. The kind they don't teach in boardrooms, the kind that leaves no room for doubt about who's in control. The SUV pulled into the underground parking of a luxury high-rise, Celeste's private headquarters in Aurora Heights. The vehicle came to a stop, and as the door opened, Celeste emerged with all the poise of a queen returning to her castle. Monroe Technologies had secured the entire top floor of the high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling glass, sleek, minimalist furniture. and the quiet hum of power. Celeste's inner circle gathered in the main conference room, where a digital screen flickered to life at the far end of the table. Iris, still muttering about Victor Langley's arrogance, dropped her bag onto a chair. "I hope you're planning to hit them where it hurts." Celeste stood at the head of the table, her hands resting lightly on the surface. Her team, a mix of trusted lawyers, tech analysts, and strategists, fell silent as she spoke. "We're not just going to hit them," Celeste began, her voice low but commanding. "We're going to dismantle the Orion Palace, piece by piece." The digital screen behind her displayed the hotel's financial data, ownership structures, and a web of red lines connecting names and holdings. "I've had my eye on the Orion Palace for months now," Celeste said, turning to face the room. "It's a symbol of exclusion, a place that has thrived on keeping people like me on the outside. But beneath its polished facade, there are cracks." She gestured to the data. "The Orion is owned by a network of investors, old money, private equity groups, and a few silent partners who rarely get involved. Victor Langley may run the hotel, but he doesn't own it, and therein lies our opportunity." Her financial advisor, Damien Cho, leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. "The numbers back you up. The Orion Palace's margins have been shrinking for years. Maintenance costs are eating into their profits, and their occupancy rate has been declining since the competition opened newer, more modern hotels." "And Victor Langley?" Iris asked, her tone dripping with disdain. "A figurehead," Celeste replied. "A relic of an outdated system, but his arrogance will make this easier for us. He'll never see us coming." A murmur of approval swept through the room. Damien clicked a button, and the screen zoomed in on a pie chart of the hotel's ownership structure. "The investors will be our target," Damien explained. "Most of them are silent partners, more interested in returns than operations. If we approach them quietly, we can make offers they won't refuse, especially when they see the writing on the wall." Celeste's lips curved into a dangerous smile. "That's exactly what I plan to show them." Later that night, as the team dispersed to begin their assignments, Iris lingered in Celeste's private office. The city glowed through the glass walls, lights blinking like stars in an artificial galaxy. "You had all this planned before today, didn't you?" Iris asked softly. Celeste turned from her desk, where files and financial reports lay scattered. She held a photo frame in her hands, an old picture of a young Celeste, no more than 9 years old, standing beside her mother on the porch of a tiny rundown house. "Yes," Celeste said, after a long pause. "I didn't know it would happen today, but I knew it was inevitable." Iris stepped closer, glancing at the photo. "Why the Orion Palace, Celeste? You've built empires bigger than that hotel. Why bother?" Celeste's gaze lingered on the picture as memories surged. "When I was a kid, my mother worked 3 jobs just to keep us afloat," Celeste said quietly. "She was a maid at places like the Orion Palace, luxury hotels that treated women like her as invisible. I remember one day she brought me to work because she couldn't afford childcare." Her voice grew distant, heavy with the weight of years past. "I stood outside a hotel ballroom, staring through the glass doors. Inside, Iris's face softened. Celeste laughed and dined under chandeliers while my mother scrubbed floors in silence. I'll never forget the manager's face when he saw me there. He didn't say a word, but his eyes told me everything. I didn't belong. I promised myself that day," Celeste continued, her voice like steel, "that I'd never let anyone make me feel invisible again. And now that I have power, I won't let them make anyone else feel that way either." She set the photo down gently and turned to face Iris. "The Orion Palace isn't just a hotel, Iris. It's a symbol. And when I take it from them, it'll send a message to anyone who's ever been denied a seat at the table." The next morning, the gears of Celeste's plan began to turn. Her legal team initiated quiet inquiries into the hotel's investor network, seeking weak points in their commitment. Damien's financial analyst prepared projections of the Orion Palace's decline, reports so damning that even the most loyal investor would feel uneasy. Meanwhile, Celeste leveraged her extensive business network. Calls were made, meetings were arranged. Offers were whispered into the ears of those who had the power to sell. The Orion Palace's cracks were beginning to widen, but Victor Langley remained blissfully unaware. In his pristine office at the hotel, Victor sat smugly behind his desk, sipping coffee and admiring his domain. He had no idea that the woman he had dismissed so carelessly was now orchestrating his downfall from the shadows. As the sun set over Aurora Heights, Celeste stood on the balcony of her penthouse, looking out over the city that had once tried to break her. She could see the Orion Palace in the distance, its gold facade gleaming arrogantly against the twilight. Iris joined her, holding 2 glasses of wine. Everything's in motion. Investors are starting to question their holdings. Damien says we'll have an opening in a few weeks. Celeste took the glass, her eyes never leaving the Orion. Good. You really think Victor has no idea? Iris asked. Celeste smirked, lifting her glass slightly as if to toast. By the time he realizes what's happening, she said, her voice calm and resolute, it'll already be mine. The 2 women clinked glasses, the sound sharp and clear against the evening breeze. Below them, the city moved on, oblivious to the storm that was about to descend on the Orion Palace. The drive away from the Orion Palace was silent. Celeste stared out of the tinted window as the skyline of Aurora Heights rolled past her, each towering structure reflecting the afternoon sun. Her assistant, Iris, sat beside her, furiously typing on her phone, likely drafting an email to their legal team or finding alternative accommodations. Finally, Iris couldn't contain herself. This is insane. I checked everything twice. No, 3 times. The reservation was solid. They threw you out, Celeste. It's blatant discrimination. Celeste didn't respond immediately. Instead, her gaze remained fixed on the passing cityscape. It was a look Iris had seen before, the steely quiet before Celeste struck. Do you want me to call the press? Iris pressed. Or maybe we issue a formal statement? People should know what happened. Celeste shook her head, her voice calm but firm. No. Iris blinked, baffled. No, you're just going to let it go? Celeste turned toward her, the hint of a smile pulling at her lips. It wasn't one of amusement, but one of sheer determination, a predator sizing up its prey. They want me to react, Celeste said, to scream, to make a scene. It would validate every assumption they made about me. I won't give them the satisfaction. Iris sighed, though her brow remained furrowed. Then what are we going to do? Celeste leaned back against the leather seat and folded her hands in her lap. Her voice was like ice. I'm going to own the Orion Palace. That night, Celeste sat alone in the presidential suite of an alternative hotel. It wasn't as grand or prestigious as the Orion Palace, but the staff had welcomed her without hesitation, treating her with genuine respect. Spread across the mahogany desk in her suite was a collection of documents, financial reports, investor profiles, property assessments, all gathered by her research team within hours. Celeste was no stranger to taking over struggling businesses. In fact, she had built Monroe Technologies by identifying vulnerabilities in larger corporations and turning their failures into opportunities. This would be no different. Iris entered the suite with a tray of coffee, placing it on the desk. She looked down at the mountain of papers and shook her head. You're really going to buy them out? Celeste looked up briefly, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop screen. They underestimated the wrong woman, Iris. The Orion Palace isn't invincible. They're vulnerable. I can feel it. Iris took a seat opposite her, curiosity piqued. So what's the angle? Celeste slid a thick file toward her. Their financials. I had my analysts dig into their records. On the surface, the Orion looks strong, full bookings, steady VIP traffic, but underneath it's a house of cards. Iris flipped through the pages, her expression shifting. Cutting corners? Maintenance delays? They're hemorrhaging money on upkeep? Celeste nodded, a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. Victor Langley prides himself on appearances. He spent so much keeping up the illusion of luxury that the foundation is crumbling. Investors are frustrated with poor returns. Guests are starting to notice lapses in quality. Iris whistled softly, shaking her head. So we squeeze them? We don't need to squeeze them. I'll let the market do that. What we need is leverage, something to push their investors into selling. I've already started reaching out to my contacts in hospitality and real estate. When the time is right, we'll make an offer they can't refuse. Iris grinned, admiration shining in her eyes. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Celeste. Celeste smirked. You're smart enough not to. The next day, Celeste met with one of her trusted allies, Jasper Dean, a financial strategist with a reputation for dismantling failing businesses. Jasper was a slender, bespectacled man with a sharp wit and a ruthless understanding of market dynamics. They sat in a private booth at the Pearl, a quiet lounge known for its discretion. Jasper flipped through the reports Celeste had sent him. You were right, Celeste. Langley and his team have been cutting corners for years. Maintenance budgets slashed, staff underpaid, and their VIP occupancy is inflated. These reports are smoke and mirrors. Celeste sipped her espresso, calm and unflinching. How long until the cracks show? Jasper smirked. They're already showing. Guests have started leaving negative reviews. Investors are restless. If you hit them with a public offer now, they'll panic. Celeste shook her head. Not yet. I want to give Langley enough rope to hang himself. We'll let the whispers spread, the rumors of discontent. Then we'll strike. Jasper leaned back, studying her with a mix of amusement and admiration. You really want to own that hotel, don't you? It's not about the hotel, Celeste replied, her voice low but intense. It's about the message. They turned me away because they didn't think I belonged. I want to own that place so no one like me ever has to feel that again. Jasper raised his glass in a silent toast. To your revenge, then. Calculated and inevitable. Celeste clinked her glass against his. To justice. Meanwhile, Victor Langley sat behind his grand oak desk at the Orion Palace. Reports of dissatisfaction from VIP guests were piling up, and his investors were becoming increasingly impatient. Whispers of a buyer in the wings, someone with deep pockets, were beginning to reach him. Victor slammed his fist against the desk. Who the hell is trying to ruin me? His assistant, Lauren, shifted nervously. We're looking into it, Mr. Langley, but the investors are starting to waver. Victor's face turned red with rage. Find out who it is. I won't let anyone take what's mine. Desperate to regain control, Victor called in favors from the local press, feeding them stories about how the hotel was thriving and how modern hospitality standards were at risk from outside buyers. But Celeste had anticipated this move. She and her team launched a quiet but effective media campaign. Anonymous reviews, influencer posts, and whispers among Aurora Heights elite about the slow decline of the Orion Palace. Within days, Victor's spin began to crumble. At midnight, Celeste sat alone in her office, staring at the skyline of Aurora Heights. Iris entered, holding up her phone triumphantly. Jasper just sent word. The final investor has agreed to a private meeting. Victor's on his last legs. Celeste allowed herself a small, victorious smile. Good. Tomorrow we take what's ours. The drive away from the Orion Palace was silent. Celeste stared out of the tinted window as the skyline of Aurora Heights rolled past her, each towering structure reflecting the afternoon sun. Her assistant, Iris, sat beside her, furiously typing on her phone, likely drafting an email to their legal team or finding alternative accommodations. Finally, Iris couldn't contain herself. This is insane. I checked everything twice. No, 3 times. The reservation was solid. They threw you out, Celeste. It's blatant discrimination. Celeste didn't respond immediately. Instead, her gaze remained fixed on the passing cityscape. It was a look Iris had seen before, the steely quiet before Celeste struck. Do you want me to call the press? Iris pressed. Or maybe we issue a formal statement. People should know what happened. Celeste shook her head, her voice calm but firm. No. Iris blinked, baffled. No? You're just going to let it go? Celeste turned toward her, the hint of a smile pulling at her lips. It wasn't one of amusement, but one of sheer determination, a predator sizing up its prey. They want me to react, Celeste said, to scream, to make a scene. It would validate every assumption they made about me. I won't give them the satisfaction. Iris sighed, though her brow remained furrowed. Then what are we going to do? Celeste leaned back against the leather seat and folded her hands in her lap. Her voice was like ice. I'm going to own the Orion Palace. That night, Celeste sat alone in the presidential suite of an alternative hotel. It wasn't as grand or prestigious as the Orion Palace, But the staff had welcomed her without hesitation, treating her with genuine respect. Spread across the mahogany desk in her suite was a collection of documents, financial reports, investor profiles, property assessments, all gathered by her research team within hours. Celeste was no stranger to taking over struggling businesses. In fact, she had built Monroe Technologies by identifying vulnerabilities in larger corporations and turning their failures into opportunities. This would be no different. Iris entered the suite with a tray of coffee, placing it on the desk. She looked down at the mountain of papers and shook her head. "You're really going to buy them out?" Celeste looked up briefly, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop screen. "They underestimated the wrong woman, Iris. The Orion Palace isn't invincible. They're vulnerable, I can feel it. Langley and his team have been cutting corners for years. Maintenance budgets slashed, staff underpaid, and their VIP occupancy is inflated. These reports are smoke and mirrors." Celeste sipped her espresso, calm and unflinching. "How long until the cracks show?" Jasper smirked. "They're already showing. Guests have started leaving negative reviews. Investors are restless. If you hit them with a public offer now, they'll panic." Celeste shook her head. "Not yet. I want to give Langley enough rope to hang himself. We'll let the whispers spread, the rumors of discontent. Then we'll strike." Jasper leaned back, studying her with a mix of amusement and admiration. "You really want to own that hotel, don't you?" "It's not about the hotel," Celeste replied, her voice low but intense. "It's about the message. They turned me away because they didn't think I belonged. I want to own that place so no one like me ever has to feel that again." Jasper raised his glass in a silent toast. "To your revenge, then. Calculated and inevitable." Celeste clinked her glass against his. "To justice." Meanwhile, Victor Langley sat behind his grand oak desk at the Orion Palace. Reports of dissatisfaction from VIP guests were piling up, and his investors were becoming increasingly impatient. Whispers of a buyer in the wings, someone with deep pockets, were beginning to reach him. Victor slammed his fist against the desk. "Who the hell is trying to ruin me?" His assistant, Lauren, shifted nervously. "We're looking into it, Mr. Langley, but the investors are starting to waver." Victor's face turned red with rage. "Find out who it is. I won't let anyone take what's mine." Desperate to regain control, Victor called in favors from the local press, feeding them stories about how the hotel was thriving and how modern hospitality standards were at risk from outside buyers. But Celeste had anticipated this move. She and her team launched a quiet but effective media campaign. Anonymous reviews, influencer posts, and whispers among Aurora Heights elite about the slow decline of the Orion Palace. Within days, Victor's spin began to crumble. At midnight, Celeste sat alone in her office, staring at the skyline of Aurora Heights. Iris entered, holding up her phone triumphantly. "Jasper just sent word. The final investor has agreed to a private meeting. Victor's on his last legs." Celeste allowed herself a small, victorious smile. "Good. Tomorrow we take what's ours." The drive away from the Orion Palace was silent. Celeste stared out of the tinted window as the skyline of Aurora Heights rolled past her, each towering structure reflecting the afternoon sun. Her assistant, Iris, sat beside her, furiously typing on her phone, likely drafting an email to their legal team or finding alternative accommodations. Finally, Iris couldn't contain herself. "This is insane. I checked everything twice. No, 3 times. The reservation was solid. They threw you out, Celeste. It's blatant discrimination." Celeste didn't respond immediately. Instead, her gaze remained fixed on the passing cityscape. It was a look Iris had seen before, the steely quiet before Celeste struck. "Do you want me to call the press?" Iris pressed. "Or maybe we issue a formal statement. People should know what happened." Celeste shook her head, her voice calm but firm. "No." Iris blinked, baffled. "No? You're just going to let it go?" Celeste turned toward her, the hint of a smile pulling at her lips. It wasn't one of amusement, but one of sheer determination, a predator sizing up its prey. "They want me to react," Celeste said, "to scream, to make a scene. It would validate every assumption they made about me. I won't give them the satisfaction. Iris sighed, though her brow remained furrowed. Then what are we going to do? Celeste leaned back against the leather seat and folded her hands in her lap. Her voice was like ice. I'm going to own the Orion Palace. That night, Celeste sat alone in the presidential suite of an alternative hotel. It wasn't as grand or prestigious as the Orion Palace, but the staff had welcomed her without hesitation, treating her with genuine respect. Spread across the mahogany desk in her suite was a collection of documents, financial reports, investor profiles, property assessments, all gathered by her research team within hours. Celeste was no stranger to taking over struggling businesses. In fact, she had built Monroe Technologies by identifying vulnerabilities in larger corporations and turning their failures into opportunities. This would be no different. Iris entered the suite with a tray of coffee, placing it on the desk. She looked down at the mountain of papers and shook her head. You're really going to buy them out? Celeste looked up briefly, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop screen. They underestimated the wrong woman, Iris. The Orion Palace isn't invincible. They're vulnerable, I can feel it. A place where everyone is welcome and everyone belongs. The room was silent. For a moment, all they could do was stare at her. Simon Price broke the silence, his voice thoughtful. And what do you propose for our investment? Celeste's lips curved into a small smile. A generous buyout, above market value. I've already drafted the terms with my legal team. Victor slammed his hands against the table. You can't do this, he barked. You'll ruin everything. Simon turned to Victor, his tone cold and final. Sit down, Langley. We'll handle this. Victor froze, the fight draining from his face. Celeste placed a thick folder on the table. Take your time to review the terms, but I'll remind you, this is the best offer you're going to get. Simon picked up the folder, studying her. Finally, he nodded. We'll discuss this. Thank you, Miss Monroe. Celeste gave a slight bow of her head. I look forward to working with you. As she turned to leave, she caught Victor's eye. He looked at her with pure, seething hatred. Celeste smiled faintly, whispering as she passed him. Your reign is over, Victor. Start packing. Victor Langley sat in his office, the faint ticking of the ornate grandfather clock the only sound in the room. Papers lay scattered across his desk, financial records, investor letters, and the devastating acquisition terms from Celeste Monroe. The numbers didn't lie. The hotel was losing ground, and Celeste's offer was their only chance of survival. But Victor Langley wasn't ready to let go. He clenched his fists, his knuckles white with rage. Celeste Monroe, a woman he had dismissed, had infiltrated his world with precision and poise. She was stealing everything he had worked for, and he would not allow it. Lauren, his assistant, entered hesitantly. Sir, the investors are meeting again tomorrow. Most of them are leaning toward accepting Miss Monroe's offer. Victor's eyes narrowed, his voice a growl. They're spineless cowards. She's making a mockery of this hotel. Lauren flinched at his tone. What do you want me to do, sir? Victor stood suddenly, pacing like a caged animal. If they're too weak to fight, I'll fight for them. Celeste Monroe wants this hotel? Fine, but she'll inherit a mess. Victor knew he had one card left to play, destruction. If he couldn't hold on to the Orion Palace, he would make sure Celeste couldn't either. He reached out to a network of shady contacts, disgruntled vendors, rogue contractors, and a handful of corrupt employees still loyal to him. The sabotage began subtly at first. 1. Mysterious cancellations. Several VIP bookings suddenly fell through without explanation. Guests who were loyal to the Orion Palace received anonymous calls urging them to stay elsewhere, citing unstable management. 2. Maintenance disasters. Overnight, pipes began leaking on several floors, leading to water damage in premium suites. The hotel's maintenance team was overwhelmed. 3. Staff walkouts. Through bribes and intimidation, Victor convinced key members of the staff to walk off the job right before a major charity gala scheduled under Celeste's leadership. The event was meant to showcase Celeste's new vision for the Orion Palace, drawing wealthy donors, industry leaders, and media attention. Within days, the hotel was a shadow of itself. Complaints piled up. Guests left frustrated. Media outlets began reporting whispers of chaos at the Orion Palace. Celeste sat in her temporary office at the hotel, her eyes skimming through the reports from Iris and Jasper. The sabotage was clear, but instead of anger, a steely calm settled over her. Iris slammed a tablet onto the table. "It's Victor. He's pulling the strings. Half the staff just quit, and the gala is in 3 days. What are we supposed to do now?" Jasper ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "We can't host a major event in a hotel that's falling apart, Celeste. This will kill investor confidence." While Celeste stood, her presence filling the room. "Victor's trying to break us, but I didn't come this far to let him win. Canceling is not an option." She turned to Iris. "Reach out to our contacts, hire temporary staff immediately. Pay double if you have to." To Jasper, she said, "Contact the vendors we work with at Monroe Technologies. I want emergency maintenance crews here around the clock." Her eyes narrowed as she gazed out the window toward the hotel entrance, where Victor's car was parked like a black vulture. "And get me the media. If Victor wants a show, I'll give him one." The night of the gala arrived, and for a brief moment, it seemed Victor's sabotage had worked. The hotel lobby buzzed with stress. Vendors scrambled to set up tables. Decorators worked double speed to repair damage, and temp workers hurried through the corridors with trays of champagne. Celeste, dressed in a striking crimson gown, surveyed the chaos around her with cool determination. Jasper approached her, his voice low. "We're barely holding this together." "We're not holding it together, Jasper," Celeste said with a faint smile. "We're building something better." Outside, Victor watched from his car, smirking as he spotted the disarray through the hotel's glass facade. To him, the night was already a failure. But Celeste had other plans. As guests began to arrive, celebrities, executives, and journalists, what they witnessed was not chaos but transformation. The Orion Palace, once stuffy and exclusive, now exuded a vibrant energy. Staff worked seamlessly, the lighting cast a golden glow over the gala space, and music played softly, setting the tone. Celeste took the stage as the crowd quieted, her confident presence silencing even the most cynical voices. "Good evening," she began, her voice resonating through the ballroom. "Tonight, you are part of something new." She paused, letting her words settle. For decades, the Orion Palace stood as a symbol of exclusion, a fortress where only a chosen few were welcomed. But that changes tonight. A soft murmur ran through the crowd as Celeste continued. "I believe luxury is not about shutting doors. It's about opening them. Excellence doesn't discriminate. And here at the Orion Palace, we're not just changing a building. We're changing history." Applause began to ripple through the crowd. Cameras flashed. The energy shifted palpably, transforming skepticism into admiration. From the back of the room, Victor watched, seething, as Celeste commanded the stage. Everything he had tried to sabotage was thriving under her leadership. She had turned his destruction into her redemption. As the gala reached its climax, Victor stormed into the lobby, Lauren trailing nervously behind him. "This isn't over," he spat, his voice shaking with rage. Celeste approached him, calm and unflinching, her victory already sealed. "Victor," she said softly, "it is over. You tried to destroy this place, but all you did was expose its cracks. I rebuilt it stronger." She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't destroy the Orion Palace. I saved it." Victor froze, the fight draining from his posture. He turned and walked away, his shadow disappearing through the grand doors of the hotel he once ruled. The gala was a resounding success. Guests mingled late into the night, the buzz of excitement lingering long after the music faded. Reporters wrote glowing headlines. "The Orion Palace Reborn, a vision of modern luxury." In her new office overlooking Aurora Heights, Celeste stood with Iris and Jasper, champagne flutes in hand. "We did it," Iris said, her voice filled with pride. Celeste gazed out the window, the skyline sparkling in the distance. "This was just the first battle. Now we build the legacy." As she raised her glass, a faint smile tugged at her lips. Victor Langley was gone, the sabotage was overcome, and the Orion Palace was hers. And for Celeste Monroe, the real work had just begun. The first light of morning broke over Aurora Heights, bathing the Orion Palace in hues of gold and pink. Inside, a new energy buzzed through the walls. It wasn't the whisper of exclusion that once hung like a shadow. It was the hum of transformation. Celeste Monroe, dressed in a crisp cream suit, strode purposefully through the hotel. Jasper Reed, the eager young intern she had taken under her wing, followed closely behind, a notepad and tablet in hand. "This week marks the beginning of a complete overhaul," Celeste said, as they entered the main ballroom where her senior team awaited. "We're not just patching cracks, we're redesigning the foundation." She faced her team, designers, consultants, and newly promoted staff, and laid out her vision. "We will dismantle everything the Orion Palace once stood for," Celeste began, her tone steady but sharp. "From policies to guest experiences to the people we hire, everything changes. This hotel will become a beacon of inclusivity, excellence, and opportunity." The room sat in silence for a beat before erupting in applause. The fight was no longer against Victor Langley or his cronies. It was against history, prejudice, and stagnation. Celeste's transformation wasn't just about luxury upgrades, it was about people. She set out to hire individuals overlooked by the industry, people like Jasper. Jasper Reed was 22, bright-eyed and determined. He came from the south side of Aurora Heights, where opportunities were scarce and dreams often died before they were born. Celeste had spotted his potential the moment they met, and under her mentorship, Jasper began to shine. One afternoon, Jasper nervously approached Celeste in her office. "Miss Monroe, I have a proposal for the new guest experience protocols," he said, his hands shaking slightly as he handed her a printed report. Celeste raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You've been working on this?" "Late nights," Jasper admitted. "I think we can modernize the check-in system with digital concierge options that make the process faster and more welcoming." Celeste skimmed through the pages, a proud smile tugging at her lips. "This is excellent work, Jasper. Let's present it to the senior team tomorrow." Jasper's chest swelled with pride. For the first time in his life, someone believed in him. Unbeknownst to Celeste, Victor Langley was not finished. Sitting in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of the city, Victor met with a familiar face. Graham Keller, a ruthless tabloid editor known for sensationalizing scandals. "You want dirt on Celeste Monroe?" Graham asked, swirling his whiskey glass. "It'll cost you." Victor slid an envelope, stuffed with cash, across the table. "Dig deep. Claim she's ruining the hotel's reputation. Make it look like her changes are driving away high-value clients." Within days, headlines began to flood social media. Orion Palace chaos. Disgruntled staff walk off in protest. Exclusive hotels should stay exclusive. How Celeste Monroe is destroying luxury. Investors in panic as changes backfire. The smear campaign was swift and vicious. Guests began canceling reservations, and rumors spread among the staff. Iris stormed into Celeste's office, tablet in hand. "Victor's behind this. These articles are trash, but they're gaining traction. Investors are nervous." Celeste scanned the headlines, her jaw tight. "Let Victor have his fun," she said calmly. "The truth will speak louder." Amid the chaos, the Orion Palace prepared for its first major VIP relaunch event, an evening meant to unveil Celeste's reimagined hotel to the world. But Victor wasn't done. The night before the event, chaos erupted. Staff schedules were mysteriously wiped from the system. Several deliveries, floral arrangements, table linens, catering equipment never arrived. A power failure struck two key event halls. Iris panicked as the clock ticked. "Celeste, this is sabotage. Victor's people are still in play." Celeste closed her eyes for a beat, steadying herself. "Then we adapt." She turned to Jasper. "Rally the remaining staff. We're running double shifts tonight." To Iris, she said, "Call in our backup vendors, people we trust." Finally, she picked up her phone and dialed a local maintenance team that her company had partnered with years earlier. "We need electricians here in an hour. I don't care what it costs." The night became a storm of action. Staff worked tirelessly under Celeste's leadership, decorating halls, rerouting power lines, and setting tables. Celeste personally jumped in, sleeves rolled up, helping clean, organize, and calm the workers. By dawn, the ballroom was perfect. That evening, the doors to the Orion Palace opened, and a sea of influential guests flooded in. Business leaders, media outlets, philanthropists, and celebrities. Victor had expected disaster, but instead they were met with something extraordinary. The hotel gleamed. Golden lights reflected off marble floors, floral centerpieces overflowed with vibrancy, and the staff, newly trained and diverse, operated with seamless precision. Jasper, now wearing a sharp new suit, stood at the ballroom entrance, guiding guests with confidence. His transformation was evident, and Celeste watched him with pride. When the time came, Celeste took the stage. Cameras flashed, and the crowd hushed. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying through the room, "welcome to the new Orion Palace." A ripple of excitement ran through the crowd. This place once stood as a monument to exclusivity, a fortress for the few. But tonight marks a new era. Luxury is not about shutting doors. It is about opening them. Excellence does not belong to one group of people. It belongs to all of us. The audience erupted into applause. Victor, watching from the shadows, felt his defeat like a punch to the gut. As the applause settled, Victor couldn't stand it anymore. He marched up to Celeste as guests mingled around the ballroom. "You think you've won?" he sneered, his voice low. "You've turned this hotel into a circus." Celeste turned to face him, her expression calm and victorious. "No, Victor, I've turned it into a palace, a place for everyone. You couldn't see that because you were too busy clinging to the past." Victor sputtered, but before he could respond, security arrived, quietly escorting him out of the building. His reign was over, and the Orion Palace was reborn. In the weeks that followed, the hotel thrived. Guests of all backgrounds filled its rooms, enjoying luxury without judgment. Jasper was promoted to assistant manager, a symbol of the opportunities Celeste had created. One evening, Celeste stood on the rooftop terrace, overlooking Aurora Heights. Iris joined her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You did it," Iris said, handing Celeste a glass. "You changed the game." Celeste smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the glittering skyline. "We changed it, and this is only the beginning." Raising her glass, Celeste whispered softly to herself, "When they close the door on you, build your own palace." The day of the Orion Palace's official relaunch arrived, and the city of Aurora Heights was buzzing with anticipation. Invitations to the exclusive gala had been sent weeks in advance, with industry leaders, celebrities, and prominent influencers on the guest list. This wasn't just a night to unveil a hotel. It was a cultural statement, a line drawn in history. Celeste Monroe's vision had turned what was once a fortress of exclusion into a symbol of opportunity. Her work had been tireless, her standards relentless. And now the world would see the result. Inside her penthouse suite, Celeste stood before a full-length mirror. She wore an evening gown the color of midnight, sleek and form-fitting, her shoulders bare and her posture regal. Her hair fell in soft waves around her face, her makeup subtle yet commanding. This wasn't just about looking the part, it was about owning the moment. "You're ready," Iris said, stepping in with a proud smile. Her own emerald green dress shimmered under the light. Aurora Heights doesn't know what's about to hit them. Celeste's lips curled into a small smile. "Then let's make history." Meanwhile, across the city, Victor Langley stewed in his crumbling office at a second-rate property he had retreated to after his downfall. The loss of the Orion Palace gnawed at him like a wound that refused to heal. "It's a circus," he growled to himself as he paced. "She's destroyed what I built." In his desperation, Victor had managed to bribe a few former staff members to cause disruption at the gala. Untrained servers, hidden technical glitches, and a planted journalist ready to report chaos if anything went wrong. If he couldn't reclaim his power, he would at least tarnish her victory. The ballroom was breathtaking. Gold-trimmed ceilings sparkled under the light of immense crystal chandeliers. Tables draped in luxurious ivory linens were set with precision, and floral arrangements overflowed with soft roses and greenery. A live orchestra played softly from a corner stage, setting an air of timeless elegance. Guests arrived in droves, dressed to the nines in tuxedos and evening gowns. The city's elite mingled alongside up-and-coming entrepreneurs, artists, and activists, all drawn by the buzz surrounding Celeste's groundbreaking work. At the entrance, Jasper Reed stood tall, coordinating the flow of guests with flawless precision. His confidence had blossomed under Celeste's mentorship, and tonight he shone. "I've got the VIPs settled at table 5, Jasper reported to Iris, who was glancing through the guest list. "And the press is in their designated corner." "Perfect," Iris said, patting him on the shoulder. "You're killing it, Jasper." As Celeste entered the ballroom, conversations quieted for a moment. Heads turned, gazes admiring. She commanded the room with nothing more than her presence, a queen returning to her palace. Once the guests were settled and dinner had been served, Celeste made her way to the stage, microphone in hand. The orchestra quieted, and the soft hum of conversation fell into a hush. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice smooth yet commanding. "Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate not just a relaunch, but a transformation." Her gaze swept over the room. The Orion Palace has stood as a symbol of luxury for decades. But for too long, that luxury was reserved for a few, while others were left outside its gilded doors. I know what it feels like to be turned away, to be told you don't belong, not because of who you are, but because of how you look. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd. Celeste held her ground, unwavering. "This is not just about rebuilding a hotel," she continued. "This is about rewriting history, about proving that luxury and inclusivity are not opposing forces. They are complements. From this day forward, the Orion Palace stands as a beacon of opportunity, respect, and excellence for everyone." The applause began softly but quickly swelled into thunderous appreciation. Cameras flashed and smiles spread across the crowd. As Celeste stepped off the stage, Jasper rushed over, panic in his eyes. "Miss Monroe, there's a problem. Half the waitstaff are claiming they weren't trained for tonight. They're starting to panic, and service is stalling." Iris's eyes narrowed. "This has Victor written all over it." Celeste's calm demeanor didn't falter. "Jasper, round up anyone who knows how to handle service. Iris, call in our backup event team, and get me to the kitchen." Within minutes, Celeste was back in the thick of operations. She personally spoke to the shaken waitstaff, her words steady and encouraging. "You don't need perfection, just effort. Follow the leads, stay focused, and keep calm." She stepped into the kitchen where chaos had begun to spiral. "We need hands. Jasper, help plate the entrees. Iris, manage the serving flow." With Celeste's direction, the team pulled together. Dishes were plated, orders were delivered, and within half an hour, the gala's rhythm returned. Guests noticed nothing except the seamless continuation of service. Victor's planted journalist sat in the corner, frowning. There was no chaos to report, only a team led to triumph by an unshakable leader. By the end of the night, Victor's sabotage had failed. Word of the gala's success had already begun to spread on social media, with guests sharing photos of the stunning event, praising Celeste Monroe's vision and leadership. Victor, still lurking on the hotel's outskirts, watched the photos appear on his phone. His hands shook with fury. "It's over," he muttered to himself. The hotel he had once ruled was now thriving without him. And the woman he underestimated had not just taken his palace, she had elevated it beyond his imagination. Months passed, and the Orion Palace was thriving. Its reputation soared, praised as one of the most inclusive and luxurious destinations in the country. Guests from all walks of life filled its halls: CEOs, artists, families, travelers, all treated with the same warmth and respect. Jasper Reed had become the assistant manager, earning accolades for his exceptional leadership and ideas. He stood as a testament to Celeste's vision, proof that opportunity could unlock extraordinary potential. On a quiet evening, Celeste and Iris stood on the rooftop terrace, gazing out over the glowing skyline of Aurora Heights. "You did it," Iris said softly, a hint of pride in her voice. "You turned this place into something no one thought possible." Celeste sipped her glass of champagne, her gaze steady. "This isn't just about the Orion Palace. This is about what comes next." Iris raised an eyebrow. "You're already planning something else, aren't you?" Celeste turned, her lips curling into a smile. "Of course. There are other doors to open, other palaces to build." In the lobby, Jasper was assisting a young intern, a girl from a neighborhood not unlike his own. He handed her a staff badge and offered a reassuring smile. "This is just the beginning," he said. "When they close the door on you, build your own palace."